Public Works, throw and stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So we have a few missing, but we have Jim and Brian excused.
Jim's on.
Jim's on there, okay. Brian excused, do you know?
I thought he was coming tonight. I'm not sure.
All right, well, we got a quorum anyways. Minutes to approve from August.
Move it.
Christina moved us second. Second Trish. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we don't have any appointments. Carl is not here, doesn't have any updates. Kyle, you got anything for us?
I have nothing to add to the written report.
Anybody got anything for Kyle? All right, thanks, Kyle. Harry.
Okay, I have my report. Unfortunately, I do have some things to add to the report. So I'll move right down to under the Buildings and Grounds Administration, item 1, talking about the architect that's doing the design work over for the city courts. They wanted the decision from me, which I said I can't make, or well, a few decisions for me that I can't make. One of them is as follows. Well, they're going to be reviewing the HVAC in that space next week. So there's been an ongoing feeding them information, but they want to infill the freight elevator on where it goes up the first floor to increase the space on the second floor. Now, the history of that elevator, it was installed when the building was, that part of the building was constructed in 1936. Keep in mind that Tyson Krupp has stood behind with a gold agreement the elevator that was installed in the late 40s, but they're not willing to stand behind this elevator from 1936 for some reason. I can't quite understand it. But anyway, they have kept it running. They service it, they lubricate it. Costs us $2,000 a year to do that. We very, very seldom use it. The last time we used it was to move the metal detector in for the courts. And I informed the courts that if you want to infill that elevator, that's going to mean that we won't have that ability anymore. You'll have to have a rigger come in and rig something like that into the building, which would still be possible. That elevator only goes from the basement to the first floor up and down. So anyway, they would like to basically decommission that elevator. Now, it costs us about $2,000 a year for the service that TK Elevator does do on it. The whole first floor is going to be under court control after the city court happens. I don't have a big problem with decommissioning that elevator, letting them use that space, but it's not my decision to make.
Thank you very much.
They got anything for Gary on that? So basically, that's gonna have to be brought up to the full edge.
Okay, so I'll do a resolution for that. Okay,
And like you said, if there's times when they're gonna need, it's gonna be on them. And if they're gonna have to rig something in and stuff like that, I mean, that needs to be spelled out too then.
yeah, I spoke to them about that and they understand it. So, but I can make sure there's something in writing if you'd like. We can do that too. The other thing that they would like to do, there's a staircase in the old WIC area also. It goes from the basement to the first floor. It's redundant. There's another one right in that same area, basically. And they'd like to also infill that staircase. So probably the same thing. Do you want that same resolution or separate resolution or?
Probably be in, I don't know, what's our legal department think? That being the same resolution?
Are you saying for the stairs? You see there, one's the elevator, one's the stairs?
Yes,
I would do two separate.
okay.
Can I just, maybe I'm confused. Is this for the redrawing for the court space? And this is at the
Yes.
old historic post office?
Yes,
That's what I'm assuming.
Oh, so the architect plans that the city's paying for to redo the space to make it an appropriate court space is all that you're discussing right now?
yes,
Okay,
Well, I'm sorry, I probably should have been more specific. I referenced item 1 on the, on my agenda here.
So this is what they want.
Right.
So, which, I mean, that's fine if the
Yeah, I mean, it's modifying our building, but we do want them, as long as we're going to keep that building, we want to keep them as a tenant. For obvious reasons. So, okay. They're also going to want to enlarge the public restrooms. So I'll do a separate resolution for that. Although that would be part of the overall project, the way I look at it. So I may not do a resolution for that because the public restrooms in that building do not meet the current code. They're talking about proposed sally port or basically a holding area for inmates, either on the loading dock behind the building or outside of Board of Elections, which would, that would be part of their proposal as far as I'm concerned. And then they were talking about extending the elevator service to the basement. That would be done by the other elevator that I'm currently in the process of renovating and modernizing. And we've got all the parts on order and paid half the money for. It's going to be done in November. I basically told them, well, I don't see us doing that, and city court agreed with that. So right now, I won't be bringing that forward, but I just want to let you know that that decision was made. I just basically, I guess I kind of made it, maybe I shouldn't have, but you're not going to, I don't want to scrap $1 million worth of parts so that you can put the elevator going to the floor, the basement at this point. And city court agreed with that, so.
are these the city of Auburn specs or the architects?
The architect is the one that's bringing this stuff up. The reason for that would be, a better flow of traffic for inmates accessing the various. It would make it more efficient. Again, you don't necessarily want the inmates walking in with everybody else. That's what they're.
So the architects that the city has hired are kind of, this is all of their recommendations.
Yes,
to the county.
they're considering all their options and they're making recommendations.
What if they kept the other elevator for that purpose?
Well, that would serve the first floor, but that would be, it wouldn't serve the other floors. The second floor, which also has a court, although it's not the same court, so it would serve the first floor. There is another elevator that does that already, actually, that'll carry pedestrians. But both of those elevators would take them to an area where you wouldn't necessarily want them to be. Again, they're trying to separate the incarcerated individuals from other individuals. So that wouldn't serve that purpose.
Jim?
Yeah, Gary, on the elevator situation, and really this is for the group, aren't they paying for all these renovations? They just need to do it through us?
Yeah, they're gonna, there's some kind of an agreement that the county attorney's office is working on. I'm not exactly sure if they pay up front or they pay over a period of the lease or license agreement. I believe they're not gonna pay for it up front. They're gonna want us to pay for it up front, then they're gonna pay us back, is my understanding.
Through the rent.
Yeah.
They're
Through the rent.
going to cover the cost through the rent
Through the
that
rent.
they pay us, but
Right.
the architect they're paying for.
The architect they're paying for in full.
So if they wanted to modify that elevator that we're already putting work into, why not just let them do that? Finish what we have to do for us, because this project could take them a year.
Well,
Because we've already spent the money.
Yeah, but if they're going to extend it down, if I heard it right, they want to extend it down one more floor?
they wanted to make it go down to the basement, which I believe would make all the materials that I'm already paid for obsolete, basically. Because I believe you'd have to change the whole elevator at that point. You'd have to
That would be up to them,
Right.
and they would be paying us back for it.
Yeah, but we've already spent $600,000 on parts that would be obsolete, he's saying.
Well, I guess I could present it to them that, are you willing to cover the parts that we've already, that become obsolete by this, which is actually it's around $250,000. I could ask that question, I guess.
I would make that,
Whatever this costs, that's fine.
I would make that proposal to them, because it might be worth it to have them, for them to have that elevator go all the way down.
Okay. All right, I'll put that in my response.
And as far as the stairs go and stuff, if their architect is signing off that there's no code issues with fire exiting and stuff, and the building inspector is, I don't have an issue with those.
Okay, that takes care of that topic. Buildings and grounds, and we all continue to work with Bergman on the county office building project. You'll see that we'll be talking about PW1 here in a little while, where we need more money for them to keep them moving on the project. I want to talk a little bit about the mental health pergola. I did get proposals to remove the pergola over there, which would be the first step over to try to get more parking over in that building. I've got 2 quotes for that. That are comparable to each other. I've asked Brittany to review the low quote to see if the proposal that they're giving us is acceptable. If it is, we'll go with the low quote, which I might as well tell you now because I'm not taking quotes anymore. It's $12,447.48. The next lowest quote is $14,780. They don't have all the kind of hedge in their bed if they damage something or whatever. I just don't like to see people say they're going to tear something down, but if we screw up and damage your sidewalk, we're not going to pay for it. Well, that's not acceptable to me. If you screw up our sidewalk, you're going to pay for it. So she's going to give me a ruling on that. If not, I'll go with a second. Now, we've talked about that in the past. You want me to do a resolution to authorize that being torn down, or?
Do we have to have a resolution for that?
I thought you already had one. I thought you were putting one through already. Or did-
Pardon?
I thought you were putting one through already, or did,
No, I don't have one on the agenda yet, no. I talked about it before to the committee.
yeah, then if we're gonna sign that, then we would need a,
Okay, let me know which one to go with. Okay, next up, modernization of our elevators that are in the county office building, okay? Looks, in this case, I don't need a resolution for this one. I got the 3 required bids for our engineers to look at the specs that the elevator companies are considering for rebuilding our elevator. And they're gonna assist me with that process. And I've issued a PO today to pay for that. It's $4,500 is a low bid. And that'll give us a review of what is being proposed, to make sure it's complete and accurate, and also provide us with some backup information as well. We may need to upgrade and do where the elevator company basically says, work done by others, you got to make sure you do this, this, and this, and this. I need to make sure that we can do this, this, and this, and this before we award that contract. Jim has helped me a lot with that whole project, but I don't need a resolution for that because I can just issue a PO for it. And I've got money in my budget to cover it. And then last but not least, what I want to mention about County House Road, we did interview our 3rd applicant for that project, for that position that's available out there today. Very, very promising candidate. And so far, he's still planning on coming. The other 2 backed up. So I hope that this one will come and work for us. Excellent candidate.
That's a plus.
And other than that, I've got nothing else unless you have any questions for me.
Go ahead, Trish.
Trish.
With the mental health parking, when the pergola is removed and that piece is done, where does that leave us? Do we have enough parking at that point?
I've got a proposal from Bergman for redesigning all the parking out there. But one of the things that's gonna have to be done is remove the pergola, so I was trying to get a jump on that. The agreement, I've asked the county attorney's office for an opinion on some of the stuff that Bergman proposed in that. I haven't got an answer yet. Like, they quoted $55,000 to come up with a parking plan. I think we could do cheaper than that because they mentioned some things that we have to do with the city of Auburn. And we don't need to deal with the city of Auburn, in my opinion, but I want an opinion from the attorney on that. And then, yes, that'll be part of the process, and hopefully we can pick up another, I'm hoping to pick up another 10 spots, what I'm hoping for.
Okay.
Yep.
And that would.
That would just about even with what we need, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah.
It's the difference between the 55s and the 12 is the work you don't think we need to do.
The 12,000, we got to remove the pergola, or 14,000, whatever it turns out to be. Got to remove the pergola no matter what Bergman does. But then Bergman's going to redesign the entire space there to see how much more we get. They felt like
12 or 14 is
Yeah.
just take the pergola down, and that can
Yeah.
happen this fall.
that could happen this fall if I get the resolution approved, yes. Yep, and that'll help me a lot with my snow removal, by the way, because it's right in the way.
So you gotta wait a whole nother month now, because
Yes,
unless you bring it.
yes.
All right, wanna do your resolutions now?
Okay. Okay, PW one is amending resolution 128-23 to authorize additional funds for Bergman to provide additional information outside the scope of the original agreement.
Forward.
Second.
Second, Christina, any questions? Chris?
I was wondering if somebody could speak to this, particularly in regard to, looking at alternatives for EMO and the 911 backup center. Are there other alternatives being looked at? And with this building particularly, I always thought there was a flooding issue. I don't know if there still is.
We solved that. That's one problem I can say that I've solved.
Awesome.
Yes, we
That's
solved
great.
that. We solved that problem a few years back, but yeah, it was a horrible problem.
Okay, all right. So I just was curious, you know, in terms of spending this money, which is not a small amount, if this truly is our first preference for those centers, or if other options are being explored.
Well, that's really why we're paying Bergman more money, because we want more options explored and actually costs associated with those options, so that you guys can make an intelligent decision. That's what we're trying to do, is to put ourselves, I think, in your shoes and say, okay, what would I want to know if I was going to decide on, $35 million expense repair? I'd want to know what are all the options, right? So they're going to be giving us more information than we originally asked for, because we're asking for it now, knowing that you guys are going to want it, or you should want it to make a good decision.
Okay, so I guess my follow-up question to that is that, are we gonna have options to consider, or are we waiting, or will that be part of, once this report is done and we have cost estimate on this building, are we looking at cost estimates on other options? For instance, I'll just throw out that there's been some discussion with the city at some level about that.
Yeah, there'll be budget numbers for like a remote EMO place, or a remote place for E911. So there will be that information. It's not going to be a design or anything, but it'll be a high level view of what the cost would be. It won't be a detail like the schematics we're going to be getting for this building, obviously. We don't want to pay for all that at this point until you make a decision which way you're going to go, and then we would pay for those options.
Okay, and this is not a question, but just a comment that I do want to follow up with Riley and Denise and talk to you guys about your perspective on this as well, in terms of what.
Stay tuned for judicial and public safety.
Good.
I have a presentation tonight.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, I got him in the parking lot.
Thank you.
There you go. Sounds like that.
Tried to close him in the window.
Stay tuned, Trish.
Elaine?
Gary, are you talking about there'll be just rehab this building? Rehab the building and put some addition on?
Yes.
Rehab the building and include 911 and EMO, or rehab it and don't? Those are the things you're.
Yes, those are the things that's what we're expanding on, and asking them to provide that level of detail so that you guys can decide what you want to do with it. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, because the decision of adding on or just leaving the building as is and redoing it, none of those decisions have been made until we.
Well, we can't make any
No,
decisions.
no, but I mean, talked about all of those
Right.
things. So now we're putting cost to that.
Now we're putting actual plans and costs to it, so you can see what does it look like?
Yep.
And what does it cost?
Okay.
And I think you need both of those numbers to make a decision, really.
So my question for you, Gary, a question/statement is, one, are we done doing this? Or next month, are we gonna say, oh, we thought of something else, another resolution to pay them more? And two, are we basing a lot of this on wants or needs, or both? Because we don't exactly live in the greatest economy in the world right now. And the taxpayers are paying for this. You know, there was just a thing where the average family spent another $700 to $800 more than they normally would to send their kids back to school. average families are spending $800 to $900 more a month just to survive. And then we're gonna say, hey, buy us a new $50 million building because we wanted this, not needed it, we wanted this.
Well, okay, there is a need to do something with this building.
I get that part.
Right, okay. As far as all the proposals you're gonna get, some of them will include, well, I guess right now, until we get the detail of the minimal, okay, keep this building, retrofit it for make it an essential building, and then keep the EMO in here, keep backup 911 in here, and basically renovate the floors, right? That theoretically would be the cheapest option, assuming making this into an essential structure doesn't cost more than I would think it would. It wouldn't cost as much as a new building, for example, or building a new building for Riley or an E911. I don't believe it would cost anywhere near that much to make this building structurally acceptable by code as an essential facility. I don't believe so. But that's one of the things we're asking them to give us. We want that number so you can analyze it, okay?
Yeah.
So that would be maybe the cheapest option. Then the option of moving those guys out and how much that costs. And then there's the other option of do we need an addition? If we need an addition, what does that cost? And what does that allow us to provide to the employees, for example? Now you can say whether it's essential, non-essential. You know, you do need to have a place. If you're making the office, a lot of the offices are going to be made smaller, right? As part of this process to try to consolidate everything. So all of a sudden you don't have the luxury like I have at the park of if 3 people show up, they can sit in my office and I can talk to them. If you've got an office with 1 chair, maybe 2 tops, you're not going to have that luxury to have 3 people. You're going to have to find a conference room. Well, so is a conference room a luxury or is it a necessity? In that case, I believe you got to have access to a conference room. Now, do you need one on every floor or every other floor? You know, all that this is all the stuff that we need to have documented and the costs associated so you guys can make a decision. So I don't think none of us, if we wanted the Taj Mahal, we would have built a new building. Everybody wants a new building. Why not? Right? Well, that was it 60 million, 55 million? This is hopefully going to be around 35 to 40 million. A lot less money, still a substantial amount. But the other thing to consider, this is going to be, we're not going to rebuild this building again in 5 years. Hopefully it'll last another 25 or 30 or 40 years, right? So it's a long-term investment in the county infrastructure. That's the way I look at it. But really, we need to give you the options. And then the only way I think you were talking about we'd be going back to them. The only way we're going back to them is somehow we didn't think of one option and you guys say, well, geez, I want to know about this. Well, we might go back to Bergman and say, okay, they want to know this. You know, they won't do it for nothing, but they'll get you the information. We want to give you the information you need. That's what we're trying to do. And hopefully you'll have all you need. And if you don't, we'll have to go back and get more. That's all. Now, ironically, we're all cognizant of the fact that there's an election coming up and who knows who will be approving this stuff. You know what I mean? But I feel we should be ignoring that and doing the best presentation we can do. That's what we should do. And you guys make the decision, right? Or if it turns out to be December 20th, when we get it all done, the next legislature will make a decision, you know? So that's what it comes down to. But something has to be done with this bill.
Which the only problem with all that is the next legislature will come in, not all, because some are coming to meetings, but some will be coming in, not having it as to what all was done. But
I know.
did we even move this? I can't remember now. We did.
We did, yes.
Anybody else for TW1?
Well, Andy,
Tim?
yeah, so part of what Gary's trying to explain too, we needed some information to evaluate the building and correct me if I'm wrong on this. If we're going to keep 911 and EMO in this building, there may need to be some modifications to the building itself to bring it up to code to be an essential building for those.
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
Which is part of what this 30,000 is being spent on. Is that correct?
They're going to come up with an estimate of that cost as part of this. Yes, they're not going to obviously fix it for this 30,000.
No, just an evaluation.
Right, evaluate it and come up with a number for us. Yes.
Because we might find ourselves in a pickle with this building project and wanting to keep those 2 services in this building if the building doesn't meet muster with the new building codes.
Right.
All right, all in favor, PW one? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
PW two, Gary.
PW two, amending the 2023 county budget to allow court tenant work to be completed in the courthouse and the historic post office with the cost to be 100% reimbursed by the state of New York.
Have a motion.
I'll move it.
Yeah, have a second. Brian, any discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, PW three.
A PW three, authorization to enter into an agreement with Pasco Building Automation Systems for service and maintenance of the allergen controls for the HVAC equipment, for the county office building, the courthouse, and the mental health building.
Brian moves it. Can I have a second?
Second.
Christina, discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Any more, Gary?
That's it for me. Thank you.
Doug?
Good evening. I have 19 resolutions. I don't have any. You were like about to leave. I'm sorry. Just a couple updates, construction is going really well up in Sterling, so we're excited about getting that building buttoned up by late fall. They're in there doing trades, so it's exciting to see a roof on the building and windows and all those things that are required. It's been a long time coming, so we're happy about that. We finished the concert series actually 2 weeks ago. We got rained out this past week. We parked over 900 cars, so the concerts just continue to get larger and larger. We haven't backed up on the road yet, Sheriff, so we're okay so far. But they've been really, really well received. And we're continuing to work with Steve Lynch in the planning department on finishing up a proposal from a company to do the amphitheater design. We've done a great proof of concept over the past 2 years, and we've seen a lot of great traffic from it. So it's really good to see.
Do you have a rough estimate, Doug, of like what we made off the concert series?
So we're not capturing any parking revenue from it right now. The past 2 years, we have not. There is some sponsorship money flowing back in through the Friends of Emerson. But right now, we're just burdening a lot of the costs of that as we did a proof of concept. We'd like to launch that fully over onto the Friends at some point in the future. So a lot of the expenses for the band that would actually be borne by their organization, we would continue to do the event management of it. And we're actually, as part of the budget conversation, we're talking about the opportunities to monetize that in a way that doesn't decrease the participation of it, but also does start to cover the costs of running it.
Because chances are, I can't speak for the Friends, but I'm sure they're not going to want to continue to incur that much more also. I mean,
Sure.
minor parking charges, something,
Yep. And that's the conversation we're having for the budget for last year. We actually did also secure this year a grant from the Emerson Foundation for about $40,000 that goes directly toward programming for the entire summer. So that includes the fireworks display that we do on the 3rd, and then also covers a good portion of the expenses for that event too. So we're doing it that way right now, currently.
Stop thinking about it. New York State Fair just ended. It cost you more to park than it did to get into the fair. So.
Just anecdotally, we did charge for parking at some of our larger contracted events, so not our internal events, but the larger events that we ran. And we had, for the number of people that we parked throughout the Great Race, the July 3rd fireworks, and a couple of the larger events that we run, we did charge. We only had pushback from a few individuals about charging for it. So that was good. That was actually a positive result for us.
Like it's not even $1 or $2.
We charged $5 actually at all of our events this summer. We charged at all of our contract events. We charged $5 for the large events there. So. Yeah.
I think that was for a carload.
Correct.
That's the other bargain too,
The amphitheater, is that the thing you were going to do fundraising for? No, or once the design was done, or is that something else I'm thinking of?
Well, we fundraise for everything on the
Right.
island, but we have really focused on that this year as far as getting a design in place and getting a design team in place to have them give a proposal what it would take to make the physical design to 100% CDs. So we would be able to go to the state, to foundations and get the fundraising for that. We don't have a number for it
Right.
without that design.
And the design for the amphitheater would include like the infrastructure, water, sewer, all of that.
And actually, there's a proposed a new central building there. That's new
Yep.
ticketing, restrooms. That's rolled up into that package too. So the package is whatever it would take to run that individual venue, if you will.
And once you have the designs and an estimate of cost, then that's something you can say, here's what you're going to be raising money for.
Correct.
Okay.
With the drawings and the pretty pictures and everything you need to go out. Yep. So.
You got anything else you wanna?
Nope.
Anybody got anything they wanna ask Doug?
Yes, please. I just want to make mention that the master plan for Emerson Park was last done in 2015. So it's going to be, coming on 9 years this next 2024. We should probably start reevaluating that, since we've heard proposals of possible hotels on Emerson Park County property and some other things. I'm just suggesting that Doug and the Parks and Trails Committee maybe start reviewing that.
Yeah, I think it would be a great opportunity. You were coming up, as you're right, close to 10 years. So that's always a good time to kind of revisit those master plans. The hotel property, there was a proposed site on the 2015 master plan for a hotel property, but all those should be revisited. I think that would be a great opportunity for us to do it within the next year with the Parks Commission. Yeah.
I think so too, because we talked about a children's playground, and I haven't heard much about that in the last 18 months. I'm not sure where that falls in the master plan. There's been discussions about the fact that Cayuga County number one industry is agriculture, and we don't have a county fair and some other things. So just something we should maybe take a look at.
Yep, I agree.
Thank you.
Brian?
Do you have any up-to-date sketches of the plans?
There is a schematic of the entire island, which basically lays out the locations for the amenities, in particular the destination playground and the amphitheater, that I can provide to you. Yep. Yep.
Can you email it to me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
You got it.
And to be fair, we've had the county fair, but we also know there's personality issues that have been involved with why we don't have a county fair. It's just call it what it is. All right, thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
19 resolutions. Don't bring that many. Look, you're up.
I have nothing to add in my report.
But you do have resolutions. Anybody got anything for Brian before we go to his resolutions? No? All right, PW4.
BW4 has authorized me to declare surplus highway equipment for the auction this fall.
I have a motion.
We still had to have a resolution.
I'll move it.
All right, we'll say Hans moved it and Christina seconded it. I got a question about this for Brian. So is this gonna be it? Have you figured out everything we need to get rid of that we've been hoarding for years?
There, along with the auction, will be 4 10-wheelers, 3 pickup trucks, and a bunch of support equipment.
Did we finally get rid of the,
This should be the last round of rusty iron, yes.
is the propane truck gone finally?
The fuel truck?
No, the one that ran on propane.
Oh yeah, that was gone 3 years ago.
Oh, finally, good. All right, all in favor of PW4?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, PW5.
PW5, 6, and 7 are all resolutions to re-up vacant positions that I currently
Move
have.
up the seal.
I ran out of my 6.
Is that, are you moving them as a bundle?
Yes, please.
All right, can I have a second on 5, 6, 7, bundle? Brian? Any questions? Not all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, PW8.
PW8 is just authorizing a lead bank for one of my employees that's medical issue. Out of time for-
Which we got an email about this anyhow, I think. I'll go. Can I have a-
Move it.
Christina moves it. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second, Hans. Any questions, concerns? If not, all in favor, PW8?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, PW9.
PW9 is to authorize to reallocate the leftover funds from the fuel system upgrade and the salt shed that we were able to save from the ARPA funds to do the repairs needed to the motor pool building for the relocation and do the parking lot repairs that we need to do.
I'll move it.
Second deal.
Any questions or concerns with this one? So how close are we, since this is a hot topic always, to motor pool?
It still isn't not a definite date yet. So their sewer and water authority has bought a building. They're renovating the building that they purchased and they'll be moved out. He's hoping by the end of the year. So we should be able to get them back early spring.
All right, all in favor, PW9?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, got anything else for us? Anybody got anything else for him? No. All right. Anybody got anything else for anybody? If not,
I'll motion to adjourn.
there you go. Second, Trish, all in favor? Aye.
Mike.
Don't know why you would be. We're adjourned.
GPS.
Petrus is not here, so please stand for the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America. To the republic stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Minutes to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Don't have any appointments. So that means we'll get right into department updates. We're gonna do a little flip flop here. We're gonna have emergency services. Riley Shirtliff has a short.
I'll be short.
presentation. And because he's got to go to another meeting. So
I don't get enough.
you did show up.
Sorry.
So go ahead, Riley, floor is yours.
All right, so before I jump into the presentation, a very brief update on my JPS report. We had 17 candidates apply for our 3 open positions, so we're going to be scoring those applications in the next couple of weeks, looking at interviewing at the end of the month. Beyond that, we have been very busy, including a structure fire call that went off about 10 minutes ago. Turned out to be a controlled burn, so we're okay in that regard. Tonight, I'm going to be brief. It's a presentation. Andy's just been waiting in the wings for me to give one. So I wanted to give an update on the fire tower and where we currently stand, as well as just an update as it relates to my offices and the direction that we're going to try and pursue. So here's an updated timeline. The last time I spoke to you, believe it or not, was over 6 months ago. Again, we have an ongoing reputation. We presented it to the full legislature, pursuing the idea of putting a classroom addition onto the fire tower building. Essentially, the reason we came before you was Office of Fire Prevention and Control condemned the building for classroom purposes. There's no longer a dirty or clean separation. So we moved forward with approving Bergman in May to create design services for a classroom addition, as well as a vehicle storage building for our 16 various trailers and renovation of the existing building, as well as site work. Idea was to move forward with construction documents. I've had a phenomenal team comprised of 2 state fire instructors, 3 state fire instructors, but 2 of them are also deputy coordinators. Harry Sherman is my deputy director as well. We've moved through the process with Bergman until we hit a roadblock in July. Bergman came to us and said that they identified a city service septic line that was not on a prior survey. Essentially, the 8-bay building that we were looking to put trailers into shrunk to 3. And 3 doesn't do much when we have 16 vehicles and 16 trailers and 2 motorized vehicles that are worth about $1.6 million in mobile assets. August 10th, Bergman came back to us and they provided a new site plan, which I didn't include in front of you, where they put an 8-bay building in that was going to actually encroach on the turnaround space. Essentially, we wouldn't be able to get a ladder truck to turn around the tower, the very purpose of why the tower's there in the first place. And it would not be functional for what we were looking for. We went back to them and we finally came up with a suggestion. Let's eliminate the idea of a vehicle storage building at the tower altogether. Largely keep training with training, try to keep response with response, because the property on Quarry Road is largely unusable due to the fact that it was a quarry. There's either a large amount of fill or a large amount of blasting that would have to be done to accommodate 2 buildings. So our last conversation with Bergman was on August 29th, just a couple weeks ago. We finally have got them headed in the right direction on getting some answers related to county code enforcement, with the idea that we would move forward with construction documents. So this is our final classroom. This has not changed very much since the last time I came and spoke to you. The only real modifications we did were towards the north end of the building. Adding 2 showers for decontamination space. We also added secure storage for our state fire instructors to keep their gear, and we walled off a room for a new SCBA compressor. Our current SCBA compressor is 35 years old. It was originally used by the city of Auburn. We've written a grant. We're very hopeful for it that we'll have a new $60,000 piece of equipment in the next year out there. However, it's still loud. So for noise pollution, you wouldn't be able to fill bottles during classes. Breakout rooms with separate testing areas for students, kitchen space. We put in a mezzanine for integrated training prop. We also added a small covered porch for an outdoor rehab station and gross decon. Essentially, new classroom standards require that you hose off, rinse off, or scrub down students in their turnout gear before they can even go into the now dirty classroom portion or dirty training area. All of these areas would be connected by secure breezeways that would keep there from being any contaminant travel back and forth. Turnouts would stay in the existing building. The addition would remain clean. Next slide, please. Changing the site, we eliminated, if you see that red line along to the north, that dash line, that's the city septic line that was previously not caught on a survey. We're still able to move down the line and put in a vehicle extrication pad, put in 35 parking spots, burn pod, but instead of a vehicle storage building, what we're proposing is a 24 by 30 prefab structure, Amish built structure, whatever phrase you want to use, for about $30,000 compared to the $300,000 we were looking at for a design facility for only 3 things. What that would hold would be training props, ladders, snow blower, grill, etc. Everything that would otherwise take up space in our training area. This would also include paving the site, some improved lighting, and centralizing that parking. Again, it doesn't meet the need for response and vehicle storage. However, this would maximize the ability of this site for training purposes. Total view, that's your 3D rendering. We'd be looking at that separate pole barn down on the end. The new classroom is that section all the way to the south. It's roughly that 45 by 60 addition compared to the 40 by 50 current barn. It would have a couple of entranceways so that way you could use just the classroom for a separate facility, new Class A burn building. And on the backside, there's a small generator pad. We had another grant received last year that's going to put a generator out there so that way classes wouldn't be disrupted. So there's our budget highlights. The only changes that you're seeing to this is we're eliminating that $330,000 vehicle storage building from this project. That drops our total project cost down to about 1.3 to 1.42 million. Right now, we're very, very hopeful that Congresswoman Tenney in the New York 24th is going to come through with a federal budget earmark for 1.3. The county would essentially have the cost of this project covered entirely. But because when this was written in an application format, it still included vehicle storage options. In talking with Congresswoman Tenney's office back in July, we don't believe that that would impact the nature of the grant if the vehicle storage was built somewhere else as the county's matching portion. As long as it's on county property for the same county purposes, the federal government doesn't seem to mind. So where do we go from here? I'm trying to motor along quickly here in the interest of everyone's time. But with the lack of vehicle storage at the Quarry Road site, we still have 16 trailers and 2 vehicles. Where are both of them? We continue having handshake agreements with local fire departments. Come December, come April, typical fire department election season, a new chief could go in and say, I don't want them here, get them out. And we're right back to square one where they're sitting outside at the tower. We still have 6 of them sitting outside at the tower. We have our rehab truck that is parked at the town of Owasco Highway Barn. We have another vehicle that's parked in Moravia to tow these in order to make them more amenable to keeping those trailers there and not utilizing their own equipment. So do we continue to do that? County House Road, answering Trish's question from Public Works. We have been pursuing other options. We have been looking into other alternatives. We all know and appreciate the gargantuan brick building that sits out in front of the public safety building, the old infirmary. I don't like calling it the poorhouse. I don't like calling it the old nursing home. That kind of has a negative taste to it. We being some members of my office, Harry, we were able to access that building and we went through it. It's gross. It hasn't been touched since the sheriff's department used it for SWAT team and other training, probably 20 plus years ago, Brian.
Not quite that long, but quite a while ago.
But I'd say that there's been quite a bit of deterioration. I am not a structural engineer, but in my knowledge of building construction, it is a solid block building with a brick facade. Yes, the inside is more than likely riddled with asbestos. There are grant opportunities out there. There are also grant opportunities for Emergency Operations Center funding through the state. So that might be the option to start looking at putting our offices out there. But at the very least, what I would like to approach this body about is putting a pole barn or pole barns on the County House Road property with the idea of a public safety campus as opposed to a public safety building. Public safety campuses and keeping all three elements of fire, law, EMS, and 911 combined into one area is a very popular model. And I think that we could definitely do that, provided we do a study to make sure we're putting them into the right places. Our other alternative, purchase or lease or rent additional property elsewhere. I'd like to say I'm still new. I would not know how to go about that process or what would actually be functional. At this point, what I'm looking for from this body is direction needed from you in how to move forward when it comes to both vehicle storage as well as possible alternatives for our offices. We just had a long conversation about this building. The EOC brings a lot of questions into that, trying to meet recommended and mandatory standards for FEMA and for New York State Homeland Security for an EOC can get exasperating after a while. I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to speak on behalf of those codes, but I know that the recommended minimum is 50 square feet per person that operates out of an EOC by the time you add showers, kitchen space, and additional necessities. If you add 50 people, you're already going well above and beyond what we have downstairs. I have 18 people that work part-time out of my office on a paid scale. I have additional volunteers out of my office. None of them have a place to work beyond a chair in my office, my deputy director's office, or my administrative assistants. We're operating out of a 1965 civil defense bunker as a 2023 emergency services office. I'm looking for commitment, next slide, from the legislature into one direction with our training assets, but also another direction with our response and office assets. Bringing this to a conclusion, I'm over my 5 minutes, I can hear it. 1.3 million is earmarked in the federal budget through the New York 24. I'm looking for direction for approval of this design as presented, pending no questions from this body or from the full edge. Looking to move forward before we see a possible election flip, an RFP to be posted within the next month, and moving forward to a receipt and bid award if we approve this design. And hopefully we can move forward with construction in the spring so we can continue bettering our county's emergency services assets and our local fire department trainees. What have you got?
Go ahead.
Just have a question, because that was a lot of information.
Yes.
Congressman Tenney's 1.3 million that she would be that we might be eligible for would cover the cost of what you just put up there. But you did say that there is a local match required for that.
When we were, I couldn't speak to the exact effects of the grant off the top of my head, but when that was written, it was with the idea that it would also include vehicle storage as part of it.
Well, that was the question, is that, and she says without having it won't change their desire to fund this, but
the remainder of what we're looking for would be a county match.
So
the minimum 10% or 15, I couldn't tell you.
So whatever the county matches, we could say the pole barn on county property might be able to call that the match. And that would accomplish your vehicle storage?
That's the idea.
Okay, and that's a whole separate conversation then. And by the way, we need office space.
And if we could combine it all into one project, that would be excellent. But
So-
in the immediate, at least vehicle storage has to be approached.
And the pole barn that might be 30,000 versus 300,000 could be considered county matches in your head, what you're thinking.
That little guy is just for maintenance and storage equipment out at the tower. That's our alternative for the immediate. The training project should still move forward regardless of vehicle
But the
storage.
the million vehicles you have to storage and the $1 million of assets, that goes in the pole barn, or that's only a part of?
Let's call it a garage and let's call them barns.
Okay.
The 2-bay garage would be part of our match and it would be part of the initial training tower project. The barns could
Okay.
also apply to the remaining match for vehicle storage.
And the 2 vehicle store for the 2 places for your vehicle is on this site,
This is on Quarry Road.
because that's all that can be there with this sewage issue.
We're trying to maximize the available
Okay,
space.
so there'll be 2 places for vehicles, and then the alternate space might be the pole barn on County House Road till we do something with the infirmary or whatever.
It would not work for vehicle storage.
The
That
pole
pole
barn.
barn would. not.
Okay, that's what I was trying,
That
that's
garage
what I
would
was
not work,
trying to get.
Which
at.
is why we're proposing the pole barns as well. That garage will not work for vehicle storage.
But the pole barn might.
Pole barns would definitely.
Okay.
If we want to go down that road.
So that, the pole barn and the renovation will get you everything except office space.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was confused about.
Andy? And by separating this out, so to speak, the pole barn being for storage would actually be kind of cheaper because you don't have to do, I mean, you could go with I'm not saying you will, I'm just saying you can go with run across floors. You don't need to make it as elaborate as what it was going to be if it was connected with what you originally wanted with.
It would still have the same qualities. It wouldn't be as elaborate because it wouldn't be responsible for housing some of the equipment that's there.
Yes.
But again, this is still going to be utilized as a vehicle and storage and disaster cache. If we needed to stock sandbags, if we needed canned drinking water, the idea would be at that point, we could pull trailers out until further notice. And for forklift usability, would you want slab floors? Probably.
Yeah.
And would you want it heated? Yes, to a bare minimum of 50 degrees, but it's not like this would have to be a 65 or 70 degree building come January. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Aileen, I think you're next.
So, and I like, great presentation, thank you. And I know this is, to piggyback off of what Gary just said, we need to consider what we're gonna do with this building and whether or not, we decide on an alternative for your offices somewhere else. To make this an essential building, and Heidi can help me, she's on the committee as well, to make this an essential building, you have to investigate the structure and if it's will hold up for earthquakes, and to make sure that, it's kind of from our first kind of initial run through. To me, I immediately struck this building as being amenable for your offices because I thought the expense would be far too much to go through. I don't know though until we find out, and we pass that resolution tonight. I love the idea of putting you in the public safety arena out there and having your space. I don't know how long it will take for us to make that decision, I guess. So I don't know what the 30,000 is going to bring us. I don't know the time frame. I wish we could agree on it now. And if we had to agree on it now, I would totally vote in favor of having you out there. But I don't know that we have enough information to go on. So
I think I'm just looking for a sense of direction. And if we end up pursuing a resolution to try and do a structural site investigation of that property or a survey of that property to determine its viability, I just wanted to have the chance to have a conversation with this body before coming back with, hey, Bergman says it would be $40,000 for them to investigate the infirmary, and then being responded to with, where's this coming out of?
I also want to bring up, it was probably the beginning, and Andy can speak to this too. When we first came on, Neil and Brian were, trying to get all this equipment under cover. we're still waiting for this cover. And, you know, we put a lot of money into this equipment and we have to protect it. And you need to have a place that you can count on to pull it out of and not shovel snow to get it out. So, I think we need to be strong consideration of.
Chris?
I just wanted to say, because I don't think we're gonna take a formal vote on this, but I too agree. I think that'd be great for you to explore the feasibility of your vision.
What I'm gathering is moving forward with the idea of reapproaching this board with feasibility or an assessment of that property is definitely workable. As far as pole barns go, that's also something that we'll address as kind of a 3-stage process is what I'm gathering.
So there's two things. You're hoping that you'll get support for a feasibility study of the old infirmary. That's one thing. And you're hoping that we would consider whatever the cost of the pole barn would be on that location. Because Tenny's proposal, you know for sure is a go.
It's all but guaranteed if the federal budget passes.
Okay, and we were gonna put 1.3 million of ARPA funds into this at one point, which we're not going to need to do at this point.
Hopefully,
right. So you're not gonna move forward till it's a total for sure with Tenny's earmark.
And the third thing is hopefully answering any questions that are related to the design of 1A.2 for the tower and the site. So that way we can move forward with construction documents and get an RFP out for what a contractor will say it'll finally cost.
And in your mind, you're hoping the feasibility study of the old infirmary is, can we make this a workable building for offices and space that you would need for staff? That's what you're asking. And how much would that cost?
Yes.
Andy?
So basically, to make this simple, federal budget would take care of what we were going to be put forward in ARPA. So then we could take that ARPA to put forward, build a building to store these things, and like we've been talking about, like Aileen said, for 8 years.
Yeah.
So, and we need to, friendly reminder, 24 is around the corner and we need to have this ARPA money allocated for these things. Wouldn't we look stupid giving it back?
Well, and spend.
I was never a fan of it to start with, full disclosure, but wouldn't we look stupid giving it back? So if we're gonna get the 1.3 or whatever from the federal government, then we should be taking what we were originally allocating and reinvesting it and getting the building done and not wait 8 more years to talk about it.
Exactly. We started this conversation, at least with my involvement in the office a year ago, come next month, and we're still.
Oh, we started at 8.
Yep.
We probably started it before that.
2008 was the last time the idea of vehicle storage buildings.
Maybe your ears were ringing. No.
No, out of that. Are there any questions I can answer to this body or anything further from the chair related to the tower, the barns, or EOC space and Quarry versus County House Road?
So I have two questions, actually. One, Riley, did we decide or was it investigated as to whether we could provide artificial fire to the fire tower through a propane system?
It was investigated. That was a couple of meetings ago. That was included in my report. We did look into that. However, it was about $340,000 to $400,000 to put that on. And then when we brought that up back with some of the departments in District 1 or Battalion 2, as I refer to them, the idea was largely we wouldn't use it more than a year, once or twice a year at best. And we're still closer to Oswego. So we're going to continue going to Oswego for propane-based emergencies. So for $400,000, that idea was quickly snuffed.
Well, I'll tell you offline how many times they've been to Oswego in the last 7 years. I won't say it was 0. Anyways, the building, the infirmary building, I think as a county legislature, if we got an empty building that's just falling apart, we either should do something with it or tear it down. I mean, it's gonna become a liability. So I think investigating whether that building's even worth anything and then should be done. Thank you.
Kind of like all the woods we own.
Harry, did you have anything to add? I appreciate you tuning in.
I think he's trying to unmute it.
He's trying.
I'm having a beer and supper right now. Leave him alone.
Anybody have anything else for Riley this time? Riley, thank you very much for your
I
presentation.
appreciate your time, folks. I'm on my way to another district meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
More presentations?
Actually, for them, not you.
Next up would be 911 Denise Spengler.
Yeah. Good evening. Just a couple of things to highlight on my report. Staffing, we are starting a training class on September 18th. Unfortunately, the 3 candidates that we were interviewing, one of them did not make it through the background process. So we are hiring 2. They'll start on September 18th. We have a part-timer who is going to start hopefully mid-October. That'll bring us to 4 part-timers. In regards to the communication system, Motorola refresh is completed. Recorder upgrade at the primary center is completed. The backup center, we ran into some logistical issues, so we are still working on that. And then in regards to the radio replacement, that's the grant that we received from Catco's office. We actually haven't received the funding. I'm still waiting on that. I did follow up on that this week to kind of see where we are with that. But we've gotten back 14 applications for radios from the local fire departments. We'll include the health department on that as well. I know they need some radios. So we have a meeting to review those next week. We'll go through those applications. And the last thing that I have is I do have one resolution, JP1, and that's for allowing T-Mobile to co-locate on our IRA tower. And that's a revenue source for us.
I do it now.
Absolutely.
I'll move JP1.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Just curious, there's no downside to this, right?
No.
Right.
No, yes, they put in all of their own infrastructure. Yep.
Do they take them down if they need to be, like?
They're required to decommission everything if they vacate the property.
Any other discussion on JP1? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Anybody have anything else for Denise? Thank you very much, ma'am. Next up will be assigned counsel, Mr. John Price.
Good evening, everyone. So you should all have our reports. Nothing to add to that tonight, no resolutions. So if anybody has any questions.
Anybody have any questions for?
Quick question. Is 27 word protection high? That seems standard.
Seems about average.
Standard.
Yeah.
Okay, I just curious.
Any other questions for Mr. Price? Seeing none? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up will be our coroner, Dr. Adam Duckett. He has no updates and I don't see him on the computer. So next up will be District Attorney Brittany Antonacci.
Good evening, everyone. You have my report. I don't have any additions to that. I do have one resolution. I'm seeking authorization to create and fill a full-time grant program coordinator and inside our office. That would be funded partially through the CARP grant already. He is current part-time employee. And then the other half would come from the GIVE funding that we just got. Our office got $110,000. This is a requirement of the GIVE grant that we do have a grant program coordinator. He will be the liaison between the Division of Criminal Justice Services and all of the law enforcement agencies, Auburn Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, our office, state police, probation, parole, etc. So he has a lot of requirements as part of the GIVE grant.
We needed to have
I'll move it if we're.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Okay, I have a second for discussion.
Can you remind me, the GIVE grant, is this an annual allocation that you're typically?
Yes, we've been informed by DCGS that we should be receiving it every year going forward. We are a brand new county this year. We were chosen, I think, one of 3 additional counties that they added. But I was told that we should anticipate to get the funding going forward.
Great.
You had mentioned that it's not so much our gun violence issues, it's more our domestic violence that is the problem.
Yes, so it's gonna, because we don't have a huge gun violence situation in Cayuga County, thankfully. It does include all violent crimes, and that does include domestic violence or violations of orders of protection, et cetera.
Any other discussion about JP2? Go ahead, Heidi.
So you currently have a halftime grants coordinator for CAR. Do we have an assumption that that individual is interested in full-time employment, or will you be?
So he will be doing both roles. So he will be handling the CARP, which he's already been doing. And then he actually was the GIVE grant program coordinator for Onondaga County for several years. So we're very lucky to have him. He knows how to do this role, and he's kind of jumped in. And he's been doing the duties probably for the past couple months already.
Chris?
Is he an attorney?
No, he is a former law enforcement officer out of Onondaga County. Yes. And this role really does, we drafted it because it really does require a law enforcement officer to fill that role. So that he will be fine.
Any other questions about JP2? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
Thank you very much.
I got a quick question for you though.
Oh, yeah.
The grand jury indictments, 18 for August, is that?
A little slow. Yep. It's we had, I think, 28 last month, which is good news that things are kind of calming down a little bit. So I'm happy with not as many indictments.
I was gonna say it's
We had a very busy summer, let's put it that way. So
the other
it's
numbers,
nice that it's not as busy.
the other numbers that he just gave us don't seem to be going down, but
Those are a lot of warrants and a lot of misdemeanors. So we do get our fair share of felonies, but this month is a little bit slower when it comes to felony arrests.
Anybody else have anything else for the district attorney? Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next up would be probation, Mr. J. Lewis Blair.
Good evening, everyone. Did send a report forward. Only one small addition to that. Unfortunately, on staffing issues, looking to fill our vacant account clerk typist position. We've gone through the very short list of candidates. There were only 3 on it. 1 declined, 2 never responded. So now we're going to have to go to the fallback of advertising and hoping somebody still reads the Citizen or is looking on Indeed or any of the other sources that we use to get the word out for that position. So this is the slow way to do it. But hopefully someone eventually has an interest. I do have, it's listed as having 2 resolutions for me tonight. I think that's inaccurate. The one to fill the probation officer position, I think was previously approved. I think the only one we need to do tonight is the create and fill.
So JP4.
I would probably have to find out, somebody could go back. My memory is.
before we go to that, I've got a couple questions.
Okay, well,
Other stuff.
okay, we'll go to that. We'll put a break on the resolution.
Maybe our legal team can figure that out. Your question. The new probation officer, your first thing here, candidate will start in October.
Yeah, that's why I believe the resolution was previously filled, Andy, because we've already interviewed.
I think you're right, but it's, you wrote due to the timing, they won't be able to do the training academies till spring of 2024.
Correct.
Is that this new hire also?
Correct.
Basically,
What do they do?
they need to, we're hiring this person in hopes that they pass this training in the spring of 2024 in order.
That is the way probation works. As odd as it seems, we don't train and hire the same way that the sheriff does or that other law enforcement agencies do. Division of Criminal Justice Services gives us up to a year to put people through our training academies. So they get on the job training. They're mentored by probation officers. We kind of bring them along slowly and begin to give them, some low-level casework and investigations. The good news for us is, although we're missing the fall academies, we will be timely enough to get them into the spring academies, which usually start in mid to late March. So we won't have to wait all that long.
So we have two, so what you're saying, a spring and a fall.
Correct. The way probation trains. Probation uses decentralized training hubs. So we send our folks to either Erie, Monroe, Albany, or Westchester, pretty much depending on availability, how fast they fill up, timing. Usually we try and pick the closest academy, obviously for expense purposes. But now that the state is requiring us to train for 9 weeks as opposed to our old 4-week academy, we're paying a lot of money to train. And at this point in time, and this is going to be a discussion with Ms. Marinelli when we have our next budget meeting, we have a vacant position right now that we filled. We have the create and fill for the give position this evening. I still do intend to retire within the next couple of months. We have another officer who is anticipating retiring by the end of February. So out of a total staff of 12 officers, we're going to be filling at least 4 positions between now and the spring, at the price tag of conservatively $5,000 per officer. So we're going to have to ask for a substantial increase in our 2024 training budget to be able to train all of those officers, any unanticipated vacancies, and then still meet all of our annual mandatory in-service training requirements.
Okay, well.
Just let that wash over.
Yeah, you don't let that run.
Sorry, folks, a very long answer to a short question.
No, that's. You good with that, Andy?
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, Mark,
Yes, ma'am.
I found JP6 last month is the current JP3 unless you have a duplicate, unless you're doing it again.
It was updated.
Okay.
Because it was tabled last month, the create and fill for the give
I
position.
was just talking about your JP3.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bill
Probation officer
that you
vacancy.
think we already did. It looks like we did it.
Yes, I believe it. Thank
So
you.
we can eliminate JP3.
Yes.
Correct.
So
JP3 will be hold.
So do you want a motion for JP4?
I would love a motion if Mr.
I would love to have it go forward.
All right, sir. So JP4, I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
So seconded.
So seconded. Any discussion on JP4? Yes, sir.
So just to confirm, this is caught up in all the give stuff, right?
Correct.
So there's the funding, and this is not as though you're just creating and filling with no budgetary.
Correct. This was completely dependent, and it was sort of a precondition for probation participating in the give partner. The current staffing, there was no way for us to absorb this and do it properly. So it's companion, if you will, to what the district attorney was talking about previously. Probation's been awarded $102,000. Governor's request for budget this year doubled the funding for give. Give has been in place for over 10 years. I do believe that this is going to have traction and keep moving forward. I would have been reluctant to go into it otherwise. And it's already working from the probation perspective. Right now, Officer Darren Wallowender is filling this caseload pending this hire and training. We've been executing warrants. We've been working alongside the county sheriff's office, district attorneys, investigators, parole, and APD units in ways that probation in Cayuga County never really has before. And we've already been able to get absconders and wanted individuals off the street and to look at probation residences that are related to give cases for allegations of possession of firearms. So I'm already confident that this is working, that this is money well spent, and I believe this grant's going to perpetuate.
I was I was looking at curious question. Officers involved in GIVE have conducted searches for reported weapons and taken offenders with open warrants into custody. That's what you're referring to?
Correct.
And you're doing that individually as the probation department, or you're doing it with your other?
We're doing it as a team function with the other GIVE partners.
And these would be individuals on probation?
Not necessarily, but because of how probation works, because of the latitude we have to gain entry into residences.
Okay.
We're sharing information with the other agencies involved in GIVE. We have to be very clear that what our GIVE funded officer does is completely focused on GIVE related cases.
Not so much probation cases. but
Correct.
GIVE related. Gotcha.
But the information has been sustainable at this point that we are, within clear boundaries. And Officer Wallowender just texted me the other night. He was out working a detail with other departments and said, hey, we've got information. Is this a green light or a red light? So we had a little conversation and they were able to proceed. So it's working really well, I think.
I just wanted to add that this is an effective model. It's been in use at the state level and in some of the larger counties throughout New York State. Everything that the director has attested to is true. I've seen it in firsthand. It's proactive. It's great. And I hope for everyone's support.
Any other questions, concerns? All in favor of JP4?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Anybody else have anything for Mr. D. West Blair? Okay, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
Next up will be the sheriff, Brian.
Good evening, everybody. I submitted my report. I don't have anything extra to add to that, but I'm happy to answer any questions on that or anything else if you have any.
Wow, you'll be quick tonight.
I'll make it quick.
Just gonna make it quick. I don't see anybody leaving out of their seat, sir. So let's move right on to your resolution, JP5.
All right, so JP5 is a resolution to transfer money into two of our budget lines to account for unanticipated prescription costs and meal costs in the jail that are driven by a couple of things. The main thing being our average daily population being much higher than we thought it would be, that we had hoped that it would be when we did our budget. And also with the prescriptions, our MAT program, the prescription costs for the medication assisted treatment are just getting to be pretty significant with about 30 people on the MAT program. And again, I've noted in the past that we did receive a $100,000 grant from Oasis to help cover some of those costs, but that was to cover prescriptions, an LPN position that we had to add to administer those. And I believe mental health is keeping a little bit of that money for some of the time that they have to invest in that. So unfortunately, that $100,000 isn't enough to cover all those, but we're going to have to cover some of those prescription costs along with the additional costs due to the population we have. I will mention that I think moving into the budget this year, I think we might have some opportunities. I've talked to the budget director a little bit about looking at some opiate settlement funding, some funding coming forward in the future to kind of offset some of these costs and some other positions and things that we may need to discuss to address some of these concerns moving forward. But I just want to mention that might be a good option to help address some of these things that are, really a lot of these things are driven by the opiate epidemic. So it's really, in my opinion, a good place to look to use some of that future funding that's coming to us.
Is there federal inmate numbers?
They are still low. We're at about 20 right now. And it's just due to the population in the jail. Our population count today was 159, which is down a little bit from where it's been the last couple of months. But with classifications and everything, we're getting to a point where we just don't have a lot of room for extra board-ins. So we've taken some, we've lost some, we've taken some local board-ins from other county sheriffs that are having trouble with staffing issues, but we just don't have the space to take another 15 to 20 like where we would like to be, as far as what we budgeted throughout the course of the year in anticipation of that revenue. We just don't have the room.
Before you do the resolution, don't want to get into a conversation about bail reform or anything like that.
Oh, come on.
I thought there was going to be why is the population at the jail so high in your opinion? If people are being released and not incarcerated and standing there so they can't pay bail, I mean, just the level of crime or?
Well, I think there's a number of things, and certainly the district attorney can help me with this, but we have a number of people that may have misdemeanor offenses who are not appearing in court, so they're being rearrested. They're being released a number of times. Finally, we're able to hold them. We do have parole violators. We've had a lot of pretty serious felony offenses. As you know, we've had a lot of indictments over the last few months, so we have those folks that we're holding unsentenced. So
parole's at 9 though, right? Somewhere around there.
No, I have. I know exactly.
It's just.
It's in my, actually, I think.
It's in your report.
At the time of my report.
Yeah,
we had 9.
Yeah.
I was just curious. I mean, because you do have a big population.
We do, and we've just had a lot of criminal activity too. I mean, I think there's, in my opinion, I think that a lot of these criminal justice reforms have created a lack of accountability. That's why I think a lot of people are committing offenses that are landing them in jail. I think there's things that need to be, I've been a broken record saying this, there's things that need to be tweaked and fixed that aren't being fixed, but we have a very high population count and there's a number of factors driving that. But I think bail reform is part of the problem when it comes to that, in my opinion.
In general, you think less people in jail, because they're not waiting to pay bail, but the reverse is that people are being released and then reincarcerated.
Reoffending. Mm-hmm. It's not good for them. It's not good for our society.
Okay, I'll move JP5. I have a motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
I have a second.
Bill's got to be paid and, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have an option with this. We have to pay for these.
Any discussion on JP5? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anybody have anything else for the sheriff? Sheriff, thank you for your time and your report. Please be safe. Please pass along to all your officers. Deputy, be safe. With that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn.
Third.
All right, Sheriff.
Technically,
All in favor?
Oh,
Aye. Thought we did go.